Doing? This is your host, Steve Leo. I'm going to be here with Adam Feit. He's joining me from sunny, warm Massachusetts. Not really. It's pretty cold up there, like in New Jersey. I thank him for getting on tonight on a Monday night. I'm going to let him give a little bit of his background. I'm going to talk real quick. I have a couple points that I want to go over, but obviously Adam has a tremendous background in strength conditioning, nutrition, coaching, pretty much everything out there. So I want to kind of give him the opportunity to let us know where he's from. I've known Adam for a little while. He's Jersey born like me. So we want to welcome him to the show, but also give his background. So, right now, currently, he's in Massachusetts. He's working part-time as an SSC coach at Springfield College. Also is a consultant and works full-time for Precision Nutrition and has an extensive background in strength conditioning, working with different colleges and pro teams, which we'll talk a little bit about. And also, congratulations, just finished his PhD. So, not a dumb guy, definitely a smart guy in our industry, and has done a lot. So, Adam, thank you so much for coming on to the show. And why don't you just give us a little bit of your background, how you kind of started, all that fun stuff.
Yeah, Steve, well, it's an honor to be here with you and VertiMax. I appreciate the opportunity. And as I said to you and Jesse earlier, for accommodating quite a bit of a crazy schedule. And now I think a lot of listeners and viewers are dealing with some similar concerns in terms of homeschooling and work priorities and shifting. So that means a lot from my end. So thank you for that. But in terms of, we could go down the rabbit hole real deep and probably just talk about all the different license plates I have hanging in my garage gym and the experiences those have brought me. But I started in the field I finished my undergrad in 2006. I did my undergrad at Springfield College in exercise science, actually where I just finished up my PhD. And at that time, I started coaching early as an undergrad. I did some work on campus in strength conditioning. I worked at the University of Connecticut. I worked at the Olympic Training Center in Chula Vista or San Diego, California for my big internship, which was really great, getting me exposed to, as you know, high-level world-class athletes, but also just different training methodologies. So from there, I came back to campus, finished up my senior year, got done, again, going into 2007, realized I could kind of hang around and finally have that semester without sports. I was a collegiate football player, and, the idea of doing laundry at 4 p.m. just because I could sounded really good, but I was like, I got to get some more coaching experience. So that brought me and my Jeep Wrangler, God rest its soul, out to Arizona State, where I worked out there for the semester. And that's kind of really where my network opened up in terms of meeting the right people, meeting great amounts of people, and just the network on just being on the other side of the country. So I spent a semester out there in 2007. And fast track from there was all gas and no brakes. Went to the Citadel Military College of South Carolina, started my graduate assistant work there, working with their football, men's and women's tennis teams, as well as the track and field teams. So got a lot of great coaching experience out there, and that whole GA struggle of trying to pay the bills, find money for food, as well as coaching all day and going to class. So it's something I encourage all coaches go through at some point in their career, even though things are changing quite a bit. So lasted about a year there, got called back up to Division I strength conditioning with my mentor at the time, Joe Ken, or Coach Big House Power. I spent a lot of years working with him over the course of the years. So 2 years with him and his staff at the University of Louisville, working with their football team. That's where, again, I took on nutrition coaching as part of my role as a young strength coach, because as we both know, it's more than sets and reps. So that's where I was able to kind of fine tune that. Did 2 years there. Unfortunately, how big time football works, as much as big time as we thought we weren't that good. So the whole staff got let go. I was actually the only one to be retained by the new staff, which was very grateful for, but knew I had to take on some new endeavors. I left there in 2010, went to Eastern Michigan University, became the youngest head strength coach there in Division I, oversaw over 20 plus sports, 2 weight rooms, a full staff. An incredible year of growth and mistakes. One of the best and worst years of my life. I'm so glad that happened. Quick year there. Went back with Joe to the NFL now. So I did a year in the NFL with the Carolina Panthers. So I was a nutrition coordinator there, internship coordinator, and the strength conditioning coach for our quarterbacks and special teams. And at that time, everything just kind of bashed in one. Took my wife out of college coaching, moved her to Charlotte. I started a new job. We got married. We bought a house, got pregnant, the whole American dream. And that's where we kind of really evaluated what our priorities were going to be. And that's what brought us to where I met you, Steve, going up to New Jersey. I co-founded and directed Reach Your Potential training, IGotRipped.com. So essentially now in its 8th or 9th year of operation. I was there for the first 5. So helped Bobby Smith and his staff grow that from 7 athletes paying $20 a session and cash only, and just a couple of workouts in a TRX notebook, and grew that into a program that by the time my wife and I left, we had trained over 5,000 youth athletes, had worked with numerous colleges and institutions, and got to speak at clinics alongside yourself. So about 3 years into that process, found an opportunity to join Precision Nutrition, the world's largest online coaching and certification software company, and did that full time while I was doing RIP full time. And then right around 2017, my wife got the itch to go back to school and to really, again, follow her true calling. It's not easy being a coach's wife, and she is not a coach's wife. She is a coach, and she also happens to be a wife. So I knew it was my turn to understand where my role and where we were going to be long term. That brought us back up to Springfield College. Her and I both went back for our PhDs, her in teaching administration, myself in sport and exercise psychology. And that's where we're at now. So still work full-time with Precision Nutrition as the head strength and sports psychology coach, do a lot of work in our coaching education programs, have an assistant position at the college, mentoring our GAs and coordinating our physical and mental performance with our student athletes. And I'm here doing the thing, living the dream, and wouldn't have it any other way.
Well, that's unbelievable. I didn't know all that. So that was great for me to hear. I didn't realize it was that much moving around.
It was a lot, yeah. For context, I'm 35. So yeah. I lived in a lot of places and done a lot of things. I'm hoping I'm kind of in this area for good. So we'll see what happens.
Well, I think, listen, that's the life of a strength coach, right? I think you kind of laid it out how you have to kind of bounce around, get your jobs, get your GAs, internships, all of that stuff that I think a lot of young coaches right now are probably going through. And unfortunately, in this time, it's definitely a little crazy, right? These strength conditioning programs are not the way they're normally. We spoke briefly last week about how strength conditioning programs right now in colleges just aren't functioning the same way, with the restrictions of how many kids can be in there, the pods, the taped off areas. I'm a strength coach in high school, so I deal with the same things. So I think that's obviously one thing we can definitely touch upon. How has COVID really changed the way you do business? Not only one, obviously you're a strength coach in a college, and you're mentoring GAs and people like that, but also how has it affected your online business? It's definitely changing. I mean, this has changed the world. We know that, but how has that changed for you in this past year?
Yeah, it's a great question, because I think we can look at it from all levels and domains, because it affects us both personally as parents or as, partners and spouses and whatnot. And then have that when you're married to a coach, when you understand coaching dynamics, it's not something that you can just leave at work, because that essentially work is life, life is work, and you bring that back home to the dinner table. So, my wife, Mary Kate, she's actually the associate director of strength conditioning at Springfield College, working alongside our director, Brian Thompson, who was actually just recognized as strength coach of the year by the NSCA. And those conversations, when you are sitting at the right table, and maybe it doesn't feel like it's the right table at the time, but you're sitting at the big person table. You're not at the kids table anymore, where we as coaches just want to get the kids in there. We understand the value of training for physical and mental health, but understanding, again, like you talked about, the restrictions with spacing, the policies that our states are driving by. So it has been a whirlwind. We talk about the coaching carousel. I truly feel bad for our kids. I feel bad for our GAs. I feel bad for everybody that's going through this time, because they're not getting the ideal coaching situation. So, very proud to be part of Springfield College that takes the pandemic very seriously. Right now on campus, we're getting tested. Everybody on campus is getting tested once a week. We're still in pods. Our athletic department is working feverishly to making sure that we're minimizing as much cross-contamination as possible to really get back to competition, because training can only do so much. So we've had to adapt how the weight room was in terms of zoning everything off, making sure that we've got X amount of feet between pods, X amount of feet between athletes, masking the whole deal, sanitizing. And so that's caused some stress. That's caused some uncertainty. But as I try to remind our kids and the kids that we work with and the kids that we're able to mentor, is that this will prepare you for hopefully not another pandemic, but the ability to think on the fly, to be cognitive flexible, and to really adjust and overcome, because that's going to happen in strength conditioning. You know it. I know it. The people we surround ourselves know it. There's always going to be a curveball, and your ability to thrive in those situations is going to make a big difference. So from the strength conditioning side, we're very lucky. We've got a 7,500 square foot facility. We've got some indoor turf. We've got 18 racks, full service of dumbbells, boxes, the whole deal. We've got a field house upstairs. but just trying to play in the sandbox with everybody else. Our fields are limited because of the snowy conditions. The budget, as we both know, has limited maybe custodial services and the amount of help that we can cater to all of this. So it's been a challenge administratively and logistically, but we're doing better than most Division III schools. I can attest to that. And then in terms of precision nutrition, yeah, when you pride yourself on a company that sells award-winning education and is really known around the world, and all of a sudden trainers are losing their jobs, you have clients not paying money to join facilities, clients not having the residual income to get private coaching or group coaching, that affects everybody from the top down. So again, very fortunate that our leaders had pivoted probably at the right moment at the right time and changed course. And as we talk about, it's dynamic steering. So it has been challenging, but as I keep telling myself, that the best is yet to come, and we'll hopefully just see about that as we continue on.
Yeah, hopefully, right? I mean, look, it's been almost a year already. And, obviously a lot of changes have happened in the strength and conditioning industry, whether it be private facilities, in schools, online training. All of that is definitely, like I said, dynamically changing. What do you think the long-term effects will be, positively and negatively? Because I think there are actually some positives that are going to come out of this. I think the whole idea of virtual training and online training is here to stay at some level. I don't know what that level is. But I want to know if you even agree with that, and what do you think is be some of the good things maybe we can take out of this that maybe we can use moving forward in the next 2 or 3 years, and hopefully this thing starts to turn a corner and get back to somewhat of normal.
Yeah, the new normal, right? And so I agree with you. I think there's a lot of positives. So I think the first thing is, like you talked about, this idea of remote training, but the ability to deliver it as a coach, as a practitioner, outside of the traditional emails or sites or Excel sheets, right? Like I grew up learning all the Excel formulas. I took pride in my templates and formatting, but people aren't printing that. People can't, bring all that stuff to the gym. They could choose to, but everything is now mobile. So shifting to a platform like a Team Builder or a Train Heroic or, all these other components out there have allowed our coaches to now adapt and now bring another skill set. So I think the good thing about that is programming almost does get a little bit easier once you learn a new system of doing things. Now we can reach athletes. Now we can have a little bit more accountability. We can do a lot of other cool things. So I think that's the biggest thing in terms of like program design. In terms of educating coaches, and with my wife in higher ed, the ability to deliver instruction, to do webinars, to do virtual conferences, everything got expedited at light speed. And now that, we're on platforms like right now with StreamYard, but the ability to do more than just hop on a Zoom call to connect with coaches, I found that education is now more paramount. It's now more bountiful and convenient. Anybody can learn at any time. And thirdly, coaches can now use that to, to leverage the opportunities they have, whether that's, again, extra income on the side, training their staff. I know that's something that we've done is traditionally, we've done hey, welcome to campus. Here's your orientation. We're going to do a couple hours in the morning on the admin stuff. We'll go to lunch, then we'll come back on the practical. Now all that shifted to online modules. And so now our students and our GAs actually go through the course. We treat it like a college course, and now there's quizzes, and now there's opportunities to connect, and we can do that accordingly. So I think those are probably the three biggest things. And then lastly, the education of coaches when they go out to internships. There's been some phenomenal programs that have provided a virtual internship experience. Again, you and I both know we need to get our hands on the equipment. We need to be there with the athletes, but there have been some programs that have done a really nice job adapting and providing, again, a great opportunity to not only learn, but to actually network accordingly and to move the profession forward. So there are, I would say, silver linings, but I'm always looking for gold. So what is the best that I can take away from this? I think there have been a few of those instances so far.
Yeah, I agree. I think all of that stuff is really what we've all been pushing towards. And it really, the immediate online education, I think, is really, really important now because, listen, conferences right now are still not happening. Hopefully by the summer and fall, conferences will go get back together. I mean, honestly, to me, that's what I love about conferences. I think you and I talked about it, just hanging out, having a drink, and just talking shop and sharing experiences. I've learned a ton throughout the years that way. But on the other end of it, now you can get that directed education on whatever subject matter you're looking for pretty much in an instant. And, I think everyone's getting better at delivering that. Listen, if you watch old VHS tapes compared to what we have now, right? I used to rip them out of the back of the magazine and mail.
Heck
yeah. Back in the day. But now it's, hey, click a button, pay, who knows, $50, $100 and take an online education. You know, in VertiMax too, we're providing online education now, in conjunction with live learning. So I think it's great because there are a lot of young coaches out there that are hungry and want to learn more. And you've been in the industry, what, 15, 16 years, and you've done it all, working with young kids probably at RYPT and all the way through. You've worked at the pro level, and you worked with, a Hall of Fame strength coach in my mind, Joe Ken. What have you seen? You know, obviously we know now it's different, but what have been some of the biggest differences that you've seen since you started to now, which is, it's not that long, but in strength conditioning, it's kind of a huge time frame.
Yeah, I love that question, Steve, because the art of coaching has certainly changed. The expectations from our athletes have changed. The expectations, as you and I both know, working in the private sector for a number of years, from the parents and the people footing the bill have changed, right? 15 plus years ago, you get kids in the weight room, let's say at the college level, and it would be like, maybe that's their first time. And you really had a blank canvas or an empty slate to just look at, build, develop, and create. Nowadays, again, with the rise of performance training, it's become even more mainstream, especially even now when sports are being canceled, people are flocking to facilities and side hustles and garage gyms and all of these, quote unquote, speakeasy gyms of like getting better. And so because of that, I think the dialogue of coaches and athletes and parents interactions have changed. They're coming with better questions. They're coming with higher demands. They want to know that you know your stuff. And I appreciate that as a coach that's been coaching this amount of years and now a coach with a terminal degree. I want them to understand that I do take this serious. I am a credible, I am certified coach. I know what I'm talking about. But more importantly, this idea of the expectations, it adds a little element of the pressure, right? Parents now have more choices. Being in New Jersey, I couldn't believe how many private performance facilities there were. And I remember when I was speaking with Bobby, I was still in Charlotte, and he's like, yeah, we're here, but there's a facility down the road. And I'm like, well, where's Joe DeFranco? Where's Parisi's? Like, where's Zach Evanesh? Like all these people I grew up watching, and they're like, oh, it's like 40 minutes away. And I'm like, that's a competitor. And they're like, no, it's not. Like, it's different up in Jersey. And like, that was the case. I mean, we had people all over the place, that. So in terms of what's changed, I think the expectations for us that we've really got to know more than the X's and O's. A lot of great coaches are pushing the envelope in terms of how you're communicating, how you're selling yourself, how you're building an ultimate performance program, and what that ultimately means for the end user, whether that's the athlete themselves or whether that's the customer of the parent that's paying. So it's really certainly, I think, brought the bar to a higher level. And I'll always do everything I can to meet that standard or go above and beyond. So I don't think it's definitely made it any worse, but it's definitely made us a little bit more conscious of the language we choose, the workouts that we provide, as well as the long-term plan and the overall growth.
Yeah, I think everything you're saying is a lot of what I felt. I've been in the private sector forever, and I just jumped into a school setting a couple of years ago. And I see that now because I have kids that come to the weight room, which I'm sure you get the same thing. And they worked with their former trainer, their former weight coach or speed coach or whoever, and they did XYZ type of training system, which, listen, there are tons of them out there that are great. And I think we could sit here all day and debate them all. There's so many that work. But when you bring them into your philosophy and your system, you have a plan. It could be a long-term athletic development plan, or could be a microcycle, whatever you have. Have you seen any like bumps in the road dealing with them because maybe their heads were filled with other things that may be good or may not be good, right? And then they come to the weight room, you're like, well, maybe we're just going to use the barbell today. We're really not going to put any weight on it. How have you dealt with it? Because I've dealt with that. I have kids coming in showing me Instagram videos of Olympic athletes training. I'm like, great, you're 14, you can't do a pull-up. So let's start here,
That's a great question too, because it exposes the reality of what coaches like us deal with, right? So on one hand, you have the parent who thinks, again, that their child, again, great athlete, superstar athlete on the field, court, pitch, rink, whatever the case may be. But it doesn't mean that because they're a great athlete, they're going to be a great lifter. And so having that conversation at PN, we talk about these things. They're called crucial conversations, and there's a great book on it. But we talk about, hey, when the stakes are high, when you both have a common interest, but emotions can run strong, how do you communicate that accordingly? And that's just simply a trust buy-in factor, right? You have to take your time with that. You're not there to outprove them wrong. You're there to meet them where they're at. And so, yeah, you do have to have some conversations of like, hey, I'm the expert here. You're trusting me to work with your kids. please allow the process to unfold. And we'd be happy to revisit that, right? It was like middle school kids with their parents saying, you got to go train with the high school kids. But for us, it was about front loading our expectations on the parents as well as the kids of our standards. So we had strength competency standards at RYPT. We had movement standards. Like anything else, we would go through the assessment process and say, hey, look, this is where they are right now. This is the typical improvement that we see. We're not going to guarantee outcomes because I know as a sports psych professional, right, it's about the performances and it's about the processes along the way. However, we can show you through data and other people that we've worked with that this is a natural progression or they would benefit from something else. So that's been one struggle. Another struggle that for the most part, we really tried to do our best about it was working with high school coaches like yourself, because as a private business, as you know, there's only so much you can do with the space you have and the clients that you serve. Now, what was happening is that we were getting a lot of kids that would want to come to us, and I'll just use the example of football players, because 80% of our kids at RYPT, the time I was there, were female athletes. We thrived on the female training market simply because the weight rooms were full of traditional, and we'll say it, male football players or anybody else, that the weight room was natural for them. So female athletes in Monmouth County, when I was there, they didn't have places to train. And so when they came into an environment that was inclusive, when they felt comfortable in their body and they received great coaching and support, it was a win-win. But then all of these other teams and coaches are like, well, how do I get our kids in there? And we tried to do our very best of saying, all right, you have a non-negotiable. It's working or it's training at school. It's Monday, Wednesday, Friday. You're doing the big three, right? Your high school strength coach may not have the time to do your speed work, your movement work, your agility, your capacity, whatever the case may be. And so we'd say, hey, coach, can we work together? You want to train the kid. We want to train the kid. We need to rely on training the kid so it pays our bills. We both want them to succeed on a Friday night. How can we work that accordingly? And so with some coaches, it worked out really, really well. We had great communication. We met with them. We met with the kids to make sure, hey, what did you do on Monday? All right, well then maybe we change from acceleration to max V, or maybe we work on change of direction instead of multi-directional agility, whatever the case may be. That worked really, really well, even though at the end of the day, we knew that we were losing money, but we didn't want our kids training back to back the same movements, despite filling up our, bottom line in our gym. So I think those frustrations are natural. But again, if we go back to the authenticity piece of it, we want what's best for the athlete. There are enough kids to train, and there are enough people that care to pay for those people to train. Understand where you are and how you leverage your strengths and in the appropriate market, and you're going to be just fine.
Yeah, I think a lot of people need to understand that, when it comes to private facilities, whatever question I want to get into on the chat here, that, everyone worries, oh my gosh, you're stealing my kids or you're in my territory. Listen, there's a million kids out there that need training. And like you said, the female market is, I wouldn't say it's untapped anymore. I think people realize there are a ton of females out there playing sports. I have two daughters. I mean, my one daughter's in high school playing sports, so I know how competitive it is. But when you were working with all of those teams and you're growing your business, as everyone starts out, we have a lot of people in the VertiMax education courses are starting out, whether they're out of their truck, garage, or they're trying to open a facility. What would be some advice you would give to them to take their independent small business to the next level in these times, which is a little bit more unique? And I think he gave some great advice on the teams. What are some of the key things that you think would work? And I'm sure you made mistakes like everyone else. What would you give those guys that type of advice?
Yeah. Before these times, I would say don't offer so many discounts as we did, because you're just trying to fill the door, right? You're just trying to get people in there. And if you don't know your numbers, and again, when I met Bobby, I'm like, Bobby, I have zero business experience. I can coach my tail off. I will be organized. I'll figure everything out, but I have zero business experience. And we're like, we'll figure it out. We figured it out. It was thriving. We were incredibly lucky, and it's still rocking strong the years since I've been there. But we started off like, oh yeah, sibling, absolutely 10% off. But you don't get 10% off. We'll give everybody 10% off. Or get us a group of 6. We'll make it 20% off. Or hey, team training, automatic $10 a session, right? Like we just were going off what we thought would work, because having a kid asking for a drop-in rate of like, hey, mom, dad, can I have $20 was a lot easier than saying, hey, mom, dad, can I get $27.82? Because that's how much a session broke down to, right? So again, it worked out to our advantage, but I don't want to think about all the money that we left out because we just, hey, we think this works. We'll figure it out. If it doesn't, then we'll change our prices. So that would be step one, is to like know your numbers and know what you're looking for. And again, this is across all dimensions of what's your overhead, what type of coaches you want to hire. For us at RYPT at the time, we were relying on a lot of young coaches or undergrad students. So we could afford to pay them a little bit lower because they didn't have their certifications. We had to be out there with them, but it was part of their education as interns as well. As you go through the ranks, as you know, you get certified, you get more responsibility, et cetera, then the pay goes up. We're able to comp that accordingly with some personal training. You're going to get some clients that are like, I don't do group. Group's not for me. I'm a special snowflake. I need my own stuff. And I'm like, okay, great. I don't think you are, but you feel you are. Again, I'm being conscious of my word choice here. The only times we can do it are non-peak times, and you have to pay a premium for that because I want my best coach working with 10, 12, 15 kids, not one person whose parent thinks that they're special. So we would try some things around that. And again, we made it work the best we could. And if we couldn't, we couldn't. So that would be some of the advice. But in terms of the times now, I think now more than ever is to, and I've had to do this because I've started an LLC because I want to get back into more coaching in our community. Now that school's over, I feel like I want to know my community. I don't want to be known just as like my daughter and son's dad on the soccer sideline. Like I have a lot to offer. My community doesn't know that because I've been so busy with school and work. So for me, it's about, all right, what can I offer that can be very multifaceted? So we often think of brick and mortar gyms. A lot of gyms were able to pivot to, oh, we're going to provide online workouts. We're going to provide hybrid workouts. Or we're going to be able to rent our equipment, right? Those are all still opportunities out there. But I think it goes back to even when you're creating your business or you want to get to the next level, ask yourself what truly you're in the market for. You got to identify your clientele. You've got to be vigilant about that. You've got to understand what are the multiple revenue streams or services that you're going to provide that, again, all funnel down into, I'll use the example of improved athletic performance. For us at RYPT, it was, okay, it's total sports performance training. It's 90 minutes. It's 45 minutes of movement. It's 45 minutes of strength conditioning. And we'll do that twice a week. I'd love to get the kids in there 4 or 5 days a week, but I knew the model of the kids that we were working with in Monmouth County were 2 sport athletes, and they were only going to train with us roughly 6 months out of the year, winter and summer, because we had a lot of fall, spring athletes, and we had to make the most of the time that we had. So we built our entire model around, once we knew our client, our average client was a 15-year-old field hockey player in high school, then we were able to move some things around. But in these times is how can I leverage what I know, who I know, and where I'm accomplishing that, and providing similar but varying different types of services. Can you offer nutrition coaching? Are you properly certified? Can you offer education to the coaches? Can you work on webinars? Can you provide streaming training for the kids that don't feel comfortable coming back in? So these are all options that I think a lot of people have done a really good job with. And the people that didn't and said, I need my community, I need people to come into the doors, those are the people that are unfortunately no longer with us because they weren't able to adapt. So if anything from this whole conversation, I'm hoping coaches understand is that you have to be flexible. You have to be able to adapt to your surroundings. That's what's ultimately going to keep you in the business, whatever business you're in. But look at what you offer and who you are as a coach and just ask yourself, how else can I deliver this? Who else can I reach? If I just change 1 or 2 little things, what more can we get from this process? I think it's going to set everybody up for a more sustainable coaching and business model.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think number one, just knowing your pricing. Listen, I own a facility for 10 years, and the pricing was always the biggest thing. What do we do this month? Are we going to run a special? Are we going to do, I think we all fell into that trap. But I think now as a parent who I pay for training for my daughter for other things, I realized I just want it simple. Like, how much does it cost? I'm only going to get here 1 or 2 days a week because they have school, they're playing on the club team, they have SAT prep. You have to realize that sometimes I think it's hard for younger coaches to be put into the position of a parent and what they have to go through as far as driving them there, driving them back. So I think setting the expectations on your end, but also setting expectations for the parents, I think is important. You touched on that earlier about the education. I think the more you educate the parent when they walk in the door, they become a better client over time because you're telling them, hey, this is what we do. We want to help you, whatever you can, but let's make sure this is a fit because, to be honest, sometimes it's not a fit.
Right.
Sometimes it may not be the right facility for your child. That's okay. Because I've had parents come in, like you said, and they want X, Y, Z, and maybe this isn't. I've sent people out. I'm like, I don't think this is the right fit for us right now. No big deal. I think you need to do something else. And I think you have to be comfortable doing that. And that's not hard, not easy. It's hard because listen, we're trying to pay the bills, right? You want
Right.
to bring the money in, and I think we've all probably done that. Signed a kid up and like, I don't know if this is the right thing for this kid at this time. Maybe they don't want to be there too. Maybe them, like you said, psychology wise, maybe they're just not ready for the training. I think we have to understand, and I going through your background, I didn't realize how much you're doing on the sports psychology side, but I think that's a major factor because parents are making the decisions for their kids up until a certain point. They sign them up for whatever sessions there are or clubs or whatever, but is the kid truly into it? It can be questionable at times. And I think even now, with things being pulled away, it might be kind of difficult now for kids to understand, where they're at.
Yeah, you bring up a great point there in terms of like who are we really talking to, right? We're training the kid, but for the most part, the parents are the ones, they're the gatekeepers. And so if we spend our session, if we're doing our situation in terms of the assessment and the pricing, and we're just talking to, the kids we're hoping to train, we're missing who's making those final decisions. And so I was always a big proponent. This was a lot of the work that I read, studying psychology was, putting things into stories as much as possible, helping them find a solution to a problem that they don't even know that they have. And you can use imagery, you can use metaphors, you can use however the language you want to, but it doesn't come down to selling when you believe it wholeheartedly. And we believed in our message at RYPT. We believed what we were doing. We're making better athletes. We not only had the proof, but it was a system. And when they see things, I'll never forget, we didn't have a big waiting room because we were sharing space with Bobby's wife in physical therapy. We had a parent just watch us from the window of the lobby. And our policy at the beginning, you talk about expectations, parents were not allowed on the floor to watch their kids. We didn't have a waiting room. So it's like, hey, if you aren't there, you're waiting in your car. I would have changed it if we had the space and the money to do that. Because now I'd have you, K-Cup. We'd have TVs up, right? We'll give you some recovery boots. Like, yeah, you guys hang back. We'll take care of the kids. But when parents are looking through the glass late at night, when we're coaching, they're saying, I don't know anything that you're doing, but the fact that it's organized, the kids are laughing, they're having fun, and my daughter or son cannot stop talking about it the first 5-10 minutes in the car, then you're making an impact. And then where did it go from there? All of a sudden, Susie's got a little brother, and then that little brother's got a cousin, and then all of a sudden it's your youth baseball team. And so when we started looking at our customers, which was very early on, as more than customers and as family, we were the ones getting invited to promposals. We were the ones getting invited to graduation parties. We were the ones having cherished relationships that, when my wife and I unfortunately did leave at that time, it was the hardest decision we ever made professionally because we had built such a community of family, not just people throwing us $100, $200 a month to train their kids. So it's a really big piece there to explore of like, it's more than a dollar sign. Yes, that's important. But if you look in terms of the long run, the long-term development, you're really going to be set if you do it the right way.
Well, I think the key term you said there is relationships. And that's really, if I want to give any advice when it comes to small businesses that we all, we both were involved in, you have to create great relationships with your clients. I don't care how great your marketing is. I don't care how great the equipment you have, the facility is. If you're not good with communicating with the kids and developing trust, you're going to have a tough time. I know for me, you're a parent now too. If you find that teacher, that coach, that mentor, whoever that your kid raves about and will work their tail off, it's invaluable. It's unbelievable. Because wow, that my kid loves working, and it's even harder for what we do because we're coaches. I coach my own kid now, which a little rough at times.
Tough. Yeah.
It's a tough one. But when I find, like, I'll use her for example, she goes to another coach for some track work, and it's great to sit back and watch him just do his thing, and she loves it, and I'm seeing great results, and I pay the money. I don't even think about it, and we actually had another question pop up, are the prices something that you're flexible with, or are you always alternating price per situation? I'll kind of let you address that. I think I know what you're going to say, but.
Yeah, well, my business model when we ran it at RYPT was built off the idea of wholesale pricing. Again, I didn't have any experience with businesses. But I knew every time I went to Costco's or I went to BJ's Wholesale Club, if I bought more, I got it cheaper per session. The first thing was I identified, all right, how much do we have to make? What is our value per hour, the coaching rates, all that stuff. Once we figured that out, the easiest thing for me was to say, all right, if I'm a parent and my kids are in activities, what are they doing? If they're not in activities, what are they doing? So we built our model based around the high school sports season because you were either playing a fall sport, a winter sport, a spring sport, or you're doing club stuff in the summer or vice versa. or you were just hanging out, getting ready for preseason. So we then looked at the calendar and said, all right, we want to sell a 12-week program. We had 12 weeks in the fall, winter, and spring. Our summer was 7 weeks because of preseason and vacations and whatnot. And from there, we said, all right, if you buy 12 weeks, it's going to be the most expensive, but it's going to be the cheapest per rate. What we did, which was pretty unorthodox, and I don't know many facilities that do this or even consider it, is we say no halfway through. The value of the session goes up because now if you join 2 weeks late, you're on a slightly different program. You're in a little bit different progression or regression. And now I have to take another coach to actually cater to your son or daughter accordingly. Halfway through, our kids are doing incredible movements. We're progressing accordingly. We shut the doors and we're saying, look, it's not worth it. It's not worth the $30, $40 for the session for a coach of ours to get frustrated or them to hold them back. We'll put you on the waiting list and then we'll put you back on the next list. And did we lose some customers? Yeah, but we also had a way better training environment because we ran it like a high performance college program. Is we're not just taking people, and again, it's different. I know many facilities, it might be a reoccurring monthly revenue. Hey, $200 a month, you get 2 sessions a week, 4 sessions a week, we rotate the sessions. I came from college and I said, to me, that doesn't make sense. I now understand it from a financial perspective. It does because you always have a customer. And at the first of the month, you're always getting revenue. For us, we looked at it in terms of a camp model of, all right, if you're not playing basketball, you're training with us. If you're not playing field hockey, you're training with us. So the prices themselves were never flexible. This is what we were. I think in the 5 years I was there, our prices went up $5 for the entire package at every package available. But we got creative with the high school program's 90 minutes. The middle school program maybe was 75 minutes. Once we started an elementary school program, which was really glorified physical education, it was 60 minutes. Our adults were 60 minutes, and they were on a reoccurring payment schedule. So I think the flexibility comes not just in the price, but how you're going to deliver the programs. That's going to set up some interesting opportunities for revenue because, again, you want to provide the best service possible, but you also can't undercut what you're worth, especially as your program grows. As you know, Steve, like you can be coaching in your facility or you could be doing contracted work at a local high school. And if they're going to pay more per hour for you to be there, you have to consider that, all right, well, how do I make sure the system stays in play here when I'm not there? So a lot of things to consider and all together.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think it's best bang for your buck is really what you were trying to do. And that's one philosophy. And, I've been involved in a philosophy of, we would just get kids every month. And listen, there were some challenges with kids jumping in middle of the program. But like I said, you deal with it on each end and you kind of figure out whatever works best for you. And I think that's what most coaches have to make that decision. And even now, I think it's all over the map because there are a lot of coaches that are working, maybe they're privately contracting out of facilities or they're renting fields or whatever, out of garages, like you and I talked about. I have a couple of buddies that did that. They converted their garages into a gym. We kind of went back old school. So I think it's going to be all over the map. But I think what I would take from what you're saying is keep it simple too. Let's just keep it simple. I've been to places for other, like basketball training, things like that, where the menu looks like a diner menu in New Jersey. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's a million.
I miss those, man. I haven't had a diner. Oh, bringing me back now.
Get you some disco fries or something,
Ooh, heck yeah, pork roll, egg and cheese. So let's do it.
Most people don't know what that is, but we'll next time you come to Jersey, you got to hit a diner. When you can go eat, I haven't been in a restaurant in a year, but I think that's the main thing is you have to keep it simple because to a parent too, number one, it's confusing for them. Like I said, I have 2 kids. I have a 14 and a 10-year-old. I'm taking them to all kinds of things, swimming, track, whatever. If I open that thing up and look at it and I'm confused and I'm in the industry, then there's a problem.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. So like as I build my business now, getting ready for warmer weather to come up, definitely would take a unique approach. Whether that's a flat rate, we always had makeup weeks or makeup days because we understand things come up. But yeah, it wouldn't be down to the penny. I would make sure, hey, it's going to be this or that. This is what it is, and simplified language, as you said. You're going to get more people in there, and then people are going to appreciate that. Oh, yeah, it's so simple. Just let them know, and then they'll cut you a check, or they'll Venmo you, or PayPal, or send it through the credit card. That's what we want. We want to decrease the resistance for them to sign up. We want to decrease the resistance for them to leave, or increase the resistance for them to leave because they're having such a good time.
Yeah, I think that's what we want for for parents and for kids because they just want to have that good experience. And if you start off on the wrong foot with the signing the contract and paying, that's never good. And I've had that happen. And just have a knot in my gut. I'm like, this may not go very well, but you got to turn around. And one thing I really wanted to get into, obviously, what is a main part of your life right now is precision nutrition. And I fully admit I don't know a ton about it. So number one, I'd love to hear more about really what it is as a company and what it provides. And then the second part of that question is, how do you think it's affected the younger athletes, from middle school, high school, and college? Because I definitely think college in the pro and even in the private sector, it's big, but now I see it creeping in a good way to the middle school and high school level. So I know it's kind of a long question, but just wanted to get your opinions on all that.
Yeah. So for those who aren't familiar, so Precision Nutrition, you go to precisionnutrition.com. So we are the largest nutrition coaching, certification, and software company in the world. We have worked with over 150,000 students and graduates of our programs, from our flagship program, which is where I do a lot of consulting in terms of strength coaches like yourself, coach. Like, hey, I'm a strength conditioning coach, or I'm part of a staff at a college. I'd love to know more about nutrition, how we can coach that. Great. So the level 1 certification for us is truly, the gold standard in the industry. And what separates us from a lot of other things that you can get from other governing bodies is that it's more than just the macros and the biochemistry, right? That stuff doesn't change. It's 4 calories per gram has been 4 calories per gram, or 9 calories per gram for, years and years and years. What continues to change is our approach. And again, I came, just like yourself, cut from the same cloth of high performance. Like, if you want to be the best, this is what you have to do. Here's your meal plan. Here's your training plan. Just figure it out. What we now know, through studying things like behavior psychology and just habit development and really understanding confidence, is that you have to approach this from a skills-based model. People aren't making the changes they want for their health and their body composition and their overall wellness simply because they don't know what to do. It's because they don't have the support. And so what PN has done a really great job over the years, since, they've been going 15, 16 years as well, of understanding the dynamic of behavior change and how we can leverage that appropriately to help people make the nutritional changes to live a better lifestyle. People often think that, PN is just a bunch of general population. A lot of it is general population and helping people like ourselves, former athletes, has-been, wash-ups, et cetera, make better choices. But, I spent a lot of time working in our high performance department. We've consulted with teams like the Buffalo Bills, the Calgary Flames, the Toronto Maple Leafs, the San Antonio Spurs, a lot of different high performing teams and high level athletes, of fine tuning their nutrition so that they can optimally perform. So that's kind of one sector, but a lot of our time is spent in coaching, education, and certification. We want to coach the coaches. We want to turn interested buyers, interested trainers, and coaches of thinking, hey, I'm getting pretty good results, but I know I could be getting better results, and I know my clients would be getting better results. How do I approach that and leverage my specialty and expertise as a trainer by bringing nutrition coaching to the mix? And so that's a big piece of our program. We've got our level 1 certification. I spent 4 years teaching our level 2 masterclass program, which is after you learn the science of nutrition coaching in level 1, you now learn the art. So we talk about how to properly communicate, how to work with clients that are giving you resistance. How do you work with people that say they're doing one thing and they're doing another? And that was a fundamental piece of my coaching development. And now we've got other aspects as well. We've got our Pro Coach coaching software where people can lease, but essentially I want to do nutrition coaching, but I don't have time to write all the lesson plans. I don't have time to give all the content. That's all right. It's all bundled up. Everything is an automated system on an app that your clients can use, and the coach can use remote work like we're doing to effectively orchestrate change. And then the last piece that I'm super proud of is that we've launched a continuing education arm where we can help coaches continue to improve their education, brought to you by subject matter experts, again, in behavior psychology, in counseling techniques, in metabolism, and all of the dimensions that really bring up the icky, sticky, super sciencey stuff of nutrition. We want to break it down in a manner that is going to appropriately help you make better decisions, but help your clients do it on their own when you're working with them, for many years to come. So it's been an incredible ride. I've been here now with PN for 6 years, and it's a great opportunity to see, hey, training can take you so far. But imagine if you put in the training, the nutrition, and even now with myself with mental performance, imagine if you did all three. There would be a lot of people that could really achieve great limits if they actually targeted all the components of athletic success.
Yeah, I think it's something that people probably don't pay enough attention to, nutrition. Everyone talks about it. You got to eat better and fuel your bodies. I think, listen, we've all heard that. But having a directed plan, and especially for athletes, I think it's challenging, even for myself. I struggle with it at times, and because you're on the go, you're stopping off at Wendy's to get a quick bite because you're going to a tournament. Like we've all kind of been there. So how have you really been in that world as far as and I'm talking more like the middle school, high school athletes, that 14 to 16-year-old, which is probably a lot of your clients when you were at RYPT. I know college is different because in a way they're in a bubble, so you kind of have a captured audience, right? But in the private sector or the middle school, high school sector, it's different. So what has been your approach to that, and what are some of the positive and negatives that you've seen, working with those athletes?
Yeah, so I think the positive is definitely you have an athlete or a young individual that really has no clue. They don't know what's good. They don't know what's bad. They don't know what healthy is. They're eating what their parents are giving them. They're eating what's available to them. So I think the good part is you have such a great opportunity to say, okay, what do you know? And we're going to take our time to actually teach you the fundamentals of performance nutrition. Now, what is also a strength is also a weakness and a limitation. The negative part is you're not just, coaching the individual, you're coaching the entire family. Mom and dad and the caretakers and the older brothers and sisters, et cetera, they're the ones buying the foods. They're the ones creating these behaviors. They're the ones that essentially are talking about, hey, that's bad. That's unhealthy, or you should probably not eat that. The language that, I've noticed it too. I've got a 6 and an 8-year-old, and my daughter wants to know why I'm measuring my food all the time. And so I have to be very careful of the message that I give my daughter because of the stigma of, well, daddy's just trying to be a little bit healthier, or he's trying to lose some weight. Well, should I be counting my food because I want to lose weight? So those things, those add up. And so when you're working with these kids, I think, the strengths are, they don't really know much. So you have a great opportunity to shape that, and it builds them their capacity to make those decisions for themselves, so that when mom and dad are buying the food, hey, they may not be able to control that, but they can learn how to control how much they eat, or they can control when they go out to eat with their friends, right? Like we were right across the street from a Wawa. So for those who aren't familiar with Wawa, I think it's one of the greatest inventions ever. And I probably spent more money there than I put in my 401k. But think of a gas station with an incredible sub or hoagie bar, and getting them to teach them how to read the menu, getting them to make better decisions when they go downtown or they go to the beach or whatever the case may be. Really great opportunities there. And I approach it as a slow drip manner. It's more of a faucet versus a fire hose approach. That's what I wanted to do my dissertation on. We get so inundated with information. Here's a team talk on nutrition, right? And I'm still doing it. Coaches are like, I need a team talk, 60 minutes. I'm like, yeah, let me teach you and your team everything they need to know and then wash my hands of it. That's not going to happen. So at RYPT, we would do habits of the week. We would do little sprinklings of information. We'd get them to apply it. We'd, do some challenges on social media because we wanted the information to stick. So we slow dripped it like a faucet that kept going, instead of saying, come to our nutrition seminar and let me just fire hose you with all this information. That's not how change works. So it opened up a lot of great opportunities. Again, we did some team talks with some local area high schools. We had some seminars, but the bread and butter, no pun intended, was really, hey, what is something that we can talk about on a daily basis? We can always give them something to go home to, whether that was an infographic, whether that was a social media message, distilling the information in a manner that they would understand and they would also apply when they left the doors. So that's probably been the biggest change. College, I wouldn't say it's much different, except now they're under more influence, whether that's through liquids on Fridays and Saturday nights or Thursdays because they're thirsty. They have a little bit more freedom, and they have, at the same point, not as many options. It's either the dorm room food and snacks, or it's a cafeteria. So you've got to work alongside that. And then now, again, you have some maybe body weight or body composition requests by the sport coaches. So it's a delicate line. You have to go there. You're working at the pros. In professional football, you don't make weight, they just fine you and they just keep stealing your money. And, that's a discussion for another day. And I'm not saying I agree with that approach, because you go through some pretty drastic changes, as working with some of the athletes you have. But it's setting the base, working on the fundamentals, and painting a picture of what can be done in the long run and keeping it sustainable.
I think the greatest thing you said was that slow drip. I think that's what happens, especially with nutrition. I feel overwhelmed at times because I'm trying to put it upon my teams. And, you get the questions from the sport coach. My team doesn't eat well. What should they eat? What should we be doing? It's not that simple, right? It's not that simple, because I think, like you said, it's a behavioral change. It's not just I'm going to eat these foods these times. I think anybody could buy a book or go online and see
Yeah.
a diet plan, or it's out there, right? But it's behavioral, just like training becomes a behavior. The kids that train for a long period of time, they know, hey, I got to get in 2 days a week or 3 days a week or whatever it might be. Now, how do you get them to understand that nutrition is not a 1 or 2 day thing? It's a 7-day thing, especially if you're an athlete and your body's going to be going through changes, whether it be from the changes of the training, competitions, 6 games on a weekend, and Monday morning they want to train, and we know that they're pretty worthless on a Monday morning after that.
Right.
So, what advice would you give parents, because I'm one of those people that has, like a younger kid or a middle school to high school kid that you need to make some behavioral changes, like you said, nutrition. What would be the first couple steps you would give to a parent and say, listen, here's where you should start?
Yeah. Well, I mean, to put us on the standard, right, as coaches, we have to be higher than our athletes. It's the same thing as parents. We have to model the way. They have to see what it looks like, because as we know in psychology, in order to build confidence, one of the leading predictors is watching others do it. And so if you're my dad and you're telling me to do one thing and you're doing another, and I can blatantly see that, your credibility as my coach goes out the window, right? So I'm not saying you have to avoid, the midnight snack pantry runs, or, not having ice cream when the kids go to bed. I do that as well. But I limit it. And I also have those activities and have those opportunities in front of my kids, because I want them to understand that there are no bad foods. There are no unhealthy foods. Everything is good in moderation, but we've got to work together to find what works best for you. So number one, I think, is definitely modeling the way. Number two is involving them in the process. My son is a very picky eater. My wife is also a very picky eater. My daughter will eat anything. I will eat anything. So right now we have a house divided. We have to understand that, hey, even though my son won't eat a vegetable and my daughter will, involving him in the process, even if that says, hey, can you just cut the cucumbers? You don't have to eat them. I'll give you a rubber glove if you don't want to touch them, but I really need your help. We got to get this ready. So modeling the way. Number two is involving them in the process. And I think number three, it really comes down to giving them choices. When we use what we call like an awfulness-based approach, right? It's either this or that, right? It's like squatting. You either squat below parallel or it sucks. Well, that's not the case, folks. Like, we know a lot more from that. There's a lot of different things that can happen along the way. Getting them to understand that, like, hey, you have a choice. I'd really like you to choose from these 3 items, right? You're not going out of your way to make different things for them. But if it's chicken, for instance, do you want chicken like this? Do you want chicken here? Do you want chicken like that? Whatever the case may be, the more options we have them, we enhance, which is a basic psychological need of what they have, is autonomy. Is we're not directing, this is what we do. I was a victim of that. We're having ham steak, instant mashed potatoes, and that's the end of it. And you don't leave the table until you're done with it. Okay, that probably did more damage on my health and body composition than anything else. But rather taking our time and then respecting, if they're not hungry, kids are remarkably in tune with their hungers. Like, we're not. We eat and eat and eat, and we're like, I'm full. No, I'm not. Just keep eating, right? Or we cope with food more than kids, etc. So believing them when they say, hey, I'm not hungry. Okay. And then you leave it out, all right? Or you have an option. But giving them choices, involving them in the process, and most importantly, modeling the way, those are going to be your top 3 items there. So, Coach, when you go to Wendy's, right? Hey, you'd love to go for a number 5 and extra bacon, whatever the case may be. But, if your daughter's got a game that day and it's like, all right, hey, you're probably better off with this option. I should probably be better off with this too. I'm going to meet you. I'll do it with you, right? And it's throughout that support process that's going to make a big difference.
I think that's the best advice. Get your kids involved. It is something I've actually done. Let the kids help prepare the meals. We've been taking them food shopping. It's been something we've tried to do once every couple of weeks. Hey, come on, we're going to go to Whole Foods, make a Whole Foods run. We're going to do a Costco run. Pick a few things that you'd like, and then you figure out a way to kind of, mesh it all together. It's definitely been something I've tried, and it has worked. I should have probably talked to you earlier and gotten more advice. But
no, you got to figure it out. But that's exactly it, right?
I definitely don't have it figured out. I wish I did.
But
I deal with the same thing. It's it's tough when you have 1 or 2 people who are picky, which I have the same situation. So
yeah, and I mean, hey, there's some. I mean, even tonight, like I had picked out what I was going to eat. I knew my family wasn't going to eat that, so I'm making my own deal. My daughter will have a little bit of that, but hey, my son and my wife, they're doing their thing. My daughter and I are doing our thing. At the end of the day, it's not going to be like that every day. We're all still eating, dinner together, which I think is a lost art in itself. And so we take the wins when we can. And guess what? You're going to have to get drive-through food sometimes. You're going to want to have ice cream. There's nothing wrong with that. It's, when you're talking about kids, asking them, hey, how much value is this adding to my performance, or how much value is this taking away? And trusting them and having them making their own decisions, and making simple swaps along the way can go a huge way in improving body composition and performance. So it doesn't have to be always, it doesn't have to be all or nothing, rather always something. And progression instead of perfection is going to go light years ahead to help performance.
I think that's the way to go. I mean, you have to just consult with the kids and see where they're at, and kind of, meet them where they are is what I've learned. I've been working in education now for a few years, and that's one of the things that they say at our private school. Meet the kids where they are, as opposed to, no, this is the way we're doing it, and that's it. We all kind of grew up that way, but I think that advice, if anyone just follows that, and it's difficult because sometimes I say to my wife, "What are you, a short order cook? You're making this, you're making that," but.
Hey,
I understand
I'm making pancakes in the morning, right? Some days it's pancakes. Some days when I get them to eat scrambled eggs 1 or 2 days a week, I'm like, that's a win. But guess what? I'll make pancakes as long as possible. You want French toast? I'll figure it out. I'd rather be doing that and being part of that than you just doing your own thing later on.
Yeah, and like you said too, you gotta have a little fun with them too. The little ice cream after the game or after a practice is to me some of the best times. As me as a parent, I just enjoy doing that. Going, getting ice cream and sitting in the back of the truck and just hanging out. That's a good thing too. So, find that balance, I think, is what I'm going to take from what you said. And but there's definitely a lot of places that we can hit you up. So we're coming up on the end of the call real quick. But where can people find you? Get more information. I could talk to you for another 5 hours. It's been amazing. But where can people check you out and get some more info from you?
Well, we'll have to talk to Jesse, see if we can do a continuing series and see how the analytics do for this. But I try to be, present on social media. Work's been pretty busy, and obviously with everything happening with homeschooling. But I am on Instagram and Twitter at AE Feit. So Adam Edward, AEFEIT. Facebook is still a great place. So if you're over 30 and you believe Facebook is still cool, find me there at Adam Feit. My email, probably best email, I'll give you my personal email. It's the same as Instagram and Twitter. So AE Feit, and then it's just at gmail.com. So any of those avenues possible. I'm on TikTok. I don't really know what I'm doing. It's for work. So don't try and find anything there. But Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all that stuff. You've got my email. Saving up, just preparing for a big launch with the business, as well as, really making a splash as a strength and sports psychology coach in strength conditioning. I think it's a huge gap. I know it's a gap because I researched it in school and did my PhD on it. A lot more than just X's and O's or, flying 10s or 40s. There's a lot of other things that we can be doing as coaches. So I'm hoping to add that to the field and continue to progress us moving forward.
Well, thank you so much. I'm so excited we finally were able to connect and get on this call. And I wish you all the success, especially, restarting kind of a new business in a way at your place. Doing college coaching, precision nutrition. You have a lot going on, and you have a family, a wife and kids, which is the most important thing. And one side note, I get what it's like. It's nice to be home and have dinner with your family. In a private sector, you don't get that as much. So that's I'm sure been a blessing for you and your family. But again, I really appreciate you being on the call. Please, everyone, you need to hit him up. He's one of our young stars in our industry. I mean, under 40 years old, and he's accomplished more than most. And it's not by accident, guys. It's a lot of hard work. So I hope everyone kind of takes what Adam is saying, and he's down to earth as they come in our industry, and he's done it all. So again, continued success, and definitely we'll have to get you on here a second time. So thank you for your time, Adam.
Thank you, Coach. Right. Great to see you again.
Thank you.